Hey, welcome. So picture the ancient world for a second. It's pretty much a constant, brutal cycle of one tribe conquering another, each with their own local gods battling it out. But then, out of all that chaos, something totally new appears. A revolutionary idea. A single divine promise made to just one man that was somehow meant to bless every single family on earth. Okay, let's dive into this incredible story. This one sentence, this is really the whole mystery right here. I mean, in a world that was defined by us versus them, the idea of a universal good, a blessing for literally everyone, starting from one family, that was completely unheard of. It really raises the central question. How could one family possibly become the source of a blessing for the entire world?
To really get just how radical this promise was, we have to understand the world it was born into. And believe me, this wasn't just a new idea. It was a complete 180 on how ancient people saw their gods and each other. Now, what's so interesting here is the stark contrast. On one side, you've got the standard ancient mindset. Your god is there to help you beat up your neighbor. Pretty simple. But on the other side, this new promise introduces a God whose grand plan is to bless your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor, and, well, everyone all across the globe. That's not just a small tweak, it's a seismic shift in thinking. So this promise, first given to a man named Abraham, it wasn't just about getting land or having a huge family, although yeah, those things were part of the deal. The absolutely crucial point is that it was a promise of a global good. God's plan wasn't just for Abraham's own benefit, but for the benefit of all nations through him. So you have this massive, world-altering, divine promise. And who does God entrust it to? You'd think it would be perfect, heroic figures, right? Well, not even close. The promise was actually placed in the hands of some deeply flawed people, which right away creates some serious tension in the story. Let's start with Abraham himself. We often hear him called the father of faith. But right at the beginning of his story, he's so scared for his own life that he lies to a foreign king. And this lie, this act of self-preservation, it put the very woman who was supposed to bear the promised heir in incredible danger. It just shows you, right from the get-go, that the security of this promise didn't depend on the moral perfection of the person carrying it. And the drama just keeps on coming. The promise gets passed from Abraham to his son Isaac, and then to Jacob. But how does Jacob get it? Through this heartbreaking, calculated deception against his own blind father and his brother. Think about that. The family chosen to bless the entire world is itself being torn apart by lies and conflict. And this is just such a crucial point, right after Jacob has tricked his family and is literally running for his life. I mean, he's at his absolute lowest point. That's when God meets him. And what does God do? He doesn't punish him. He renews the promise. This moment is so vital because it proves the promise's power is all God's. It's not based on human goodness at all. So what we're seeing here is an unbreakable chain being forged, from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, link by link. Despite all their personal failures, their deceptions, their family drama, the promise itself is passed on, unbroken. It becomes pretty clear that the real hero of this story is the promise, not the flawed men who are carrying it. Okay, so this brings up a huge question, right? How in the world do you get from one kind of messed up family to a blessing for the entire world? Well, the argument from our sources is that the promise first needed a nation, like a protective vessel, to carry it safely through history. Jacob's family grows into the 12 tribes, and from there, they become the nation of Israel. The logic here is pretty straightforward. For this really delicate, unique promise of a universal blessing to even survive in a hostile ancient world, it needed a container. It had to be nurtured and protected within one specific people before it could be given to all people. I love this metaphor. It's so powerful. The nation of Israel wasn't the light itself. It was the lamp. Its laws, its history, its entire existence were all designed to hold the oil. That's the promise. Until the time was finally right for the light to shine for the whole world. Its purpose was always meant to be for others. And that brings us to the climax of this whole argument. After centuries of being carried by flawed patriarchs and a struggling nation, the promise finally reaches its intended destination. It's finally made universal. So, we come all the way back to our central question. How does this actually work? How does the promise finally break out of that lamp and become a light for everyone? The sources we're looking at give a very specific answer. The argument is that this entire centuries-long story culminates in one person, Jesus of Nazareth. As a direct descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he is presented as the one who actually is the promise. Through his life and his work, the blessing is no longer confined to one ethnic group, but is made available to every single person in every family on earth who chooses to receive it.
This quote just connects all the dots so beautifully. The centuries of Israel's history, all the struggles, the prophecies, the laws, all of it created the specific context, the lamp, that was necessary for the Messiah to arrive and for people to recognize him. It was the essential setup for global fulfillment.
So we end right where we started, with a single radical promise. A promise made to a flawed man, carried by a flawed nation, but ultimately fulfilled in a way that was meant to include every single one of us. It leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. What if the story that seems the most exclusive, focused on one tiny group of people, was actually, from its very first breath, designed to become the most inclusive story of all? Thanks for watching.